Good morning. I'm Scott Forcino with The Real Brokerage. I'm an associate broker based out of New York and Florida. I form PlugIntro so professionals can meet who they should know. We gain maximum exposure by meeting people and making introductions to and with the business community. We have highly esteemed professionals like Robert, a friend of mine. So please let me introduce you to Robert Springer with Comparion Insurance Agency, a Liberty company. And Robert's my own insurance pro. He's done great work, a long time in the business. He is a dad, and he's got some real diversified interests as far as being really a professional chef and one of the most traveled people I've ever met. So I'm really proud. Robert, good morning to you.
Good morning, Scott. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate the opportunity here. And yeah, 25 years selling insurance. I just made 25 years this year. I'm now one of the older guys
Yeah,
at
right.
the
You were the young
office.
one. And I see Robert is in his native habitat with pots and pans and six burners and all kinds of utensils and all kinds of cooking accoutrements. So we're going to talk about that. And I know that Robert has a dream location that we may lose him to one day. So and it's not on this continent. It's across some oceans. So we'll get there. So Robert, the conversation in America is about insurance. What's up?
It's about inflation. It's about all that. And it's definitely targeting insurance. I've been having that difficult conversation with my mortgage bankers, my realtors, my real estate attorneys, title. Just, when they're having the discussion about insurance with their clients and what the expectations are completely drastically different than what they were only a few years ago. Um, just here in New York State, in my native state, tri-state area, I know Florida is dealing with probably even worse than New York is as far as insurance costs. I was talking to a chef last night that was paying $7,000 a year for a brand new house, nice house in Florida, but now he's paying 12,000. $1,000 a month in home insurance is insane. In New York, we're dealing with 20, 30% increases across the board on auto and home. Doesn't matter what insurance carrier. Um, there were a couple of carriers that were trying to get market share and lower pricing, and they actually just left the state. We've lost about 7 or 8 insurance carriers in downstate New York, Jersey Shore since November of last year because of capacity concerns. Um, what usually happens in insurance, if there's a large carrier that stops writing, kind of the same thing in mortgages. When you're writing mortgages, one company tightens their reins on what they will accept. The other insurance companies or the other mortgage companies are going to get more business, and they have to say, "Wait, hold on, we have to tighten up reins as well." And so we're dealing with not just higher prices, but I had a client last night referred by a large bank. Wife is pregnant, and they're trying to move out of Brooklyn into Long Island in Northport. Couldn't get insurance. They got declined by several. We were able to find a decent coastal carrier, an A-rated insurance carrier for that area that we write with. Um, but it's when we used to have 5 or 6 different insurance companies come back with pricing, now we have 2 or 3. I have a property in Montauk that I'm trying to work on right now. That's becoming a challenge as well, because obviously everybody knows if you have a mortgage, you need to have home insurance to close. So, it's
Well,
a, it's a challenge.
about that, in the normal world, a buyer would go left for the loan and then go right for the insurance. And now, to me, it might be really concerning that you really have to have your ducks in order while or before applying for a loan, because the bank, if you're qualified, says sure.
I would even say prior to even making an offer, if it's a coastal property, you have claims history, you should have the insurance conversation before you even make an offer because you're kind of committed at that point. You have a good attorney that can get you out of a deal if you can't get home insurance, but you can't close without a mortgage. You can't get the mortgage without the insurance. Your money's in escrow. You got a problem. So, it's rare. We're still not at the point where it's like, okay, we got to really scrounge to find insurance for a property, but if you are buying that second home, you've had 2 claims and your house is going to be, you know, 1,000 feet from ditch plains in Montauk, that's going to be a problem.
Wow.
So,
So, I mean,
we
I
need to
know
have those
that,
conversations ahead.
right. But, I see a problem with that where the custodians of the industry, the realtors, are playing under the old rules. They may not realize that there's someone has claims. I don't think when you look at a house, the realtor says how many insurance claims. That never happens. They also don't
Mhm.
know if you didn't pay your Discover card. They don't know it's credit driven. There's so many of these nuances they get past the offer and the acceptance. Now you're applying for a loan if you're doing a good job, and those two companies have to talk. There's so much that is developed here. Now, please speak on
And
that because what are your suggestions?
and with inventory issues, the house across the street from me, we've had 3 homes here in my local neighborhood in the North Shore of Nassau County listed and go for sale. They're you have a open house day, and boom, you have an offer. It's in contract. So it's a fast moving pace. So a lot of times people don't stop and breathe. They're just worried about losing their offer on the house, and they have to just act quick. So,
Hmm.
it's just a matter of just having that conversation, educating realtors, educating mortgage bankers to say, hey, you really, mortgage bankers, put down on their estimates, insurance is going to be $200 a month. And I have to have that awful conversation saying it's really $400 a month now or $300 a month.
Hmm.
Um, those estimates are definitely from 2 years ago. Replacement values have gone up. And it's not just the home insurance market. We could talk about that all day. It's the auto insurance market. I'm seeing rates on the daily of $10,000 for average vehicles with one child driver. It's getting to a backbreaking, just grocery shopping. We could talk about all that. It's just inflation's really hitting. On the auto insurance and home insurance market. What we're seeing and what I'm telling my customers, it's a major, it's a conglomeration of so many different factors hitting the insurance industry right now as far as reinsurance rates, what we pay on insuring for large claims, repairs of vehicles, the smart vehicles, anything on them costs a fortune. If you look at the index for inflation and consumer spending, one of the top line items, I think it's second or third, is cost of repair of vehicles or cost of vehicle parts. So that's adding to things. We were insuring vehicles, pre-COVID that were maybe 30,000 to repair, and they're really end up costing us 40,000, but we're priced for 30,000 to insure the vehicle. So I think it just comes down. You could have those conversations, but you need to have them not just with the consumer. You have to have them with the people that are the front line, like the realtors, the real estate professionals, mortgage bankers, closing attorneys, things like that. So you really have to just. It comes to me to really just make that milk route of having those conversations with my centers of influence, the people that in my PlugIntro group.
Yeah, listen, I hear you, and I know you're 100% right, but I think you're more optimistic than me. I know that people are responding to market conditions, especially in the prior market. We are now sitting in September 2023 for reference. I really don't think when you have realtors on behalf of clients waiving contingencies and suggesting they pay over asking, that is such a zealous move. I doubt that people are going to limit themselves based on insurance. They've culturally just, we get insurance. It was never this obstacle. So, I mean, I believe in education, but more important than education is implementation, which I don't think that's happening. I think we're running into a wall.
Yeah, if it gets a little worse than this, it's going to be challenging. It's a challenge now, but we still have solutions. They're more expensive solutions, but there's going to be a backbreaking point where it's just like, okay, people can't afford this house anymore. You're still going to have those niches, New York City, certain areas. You're going to still have the Hamptons. You're still going to have those niches that people want to live there, whatever the price, and those people are always going to have the money for that stuff, and they'll just figure it out.
Mhm.
Um, but then, you mentioned, I think earlier we were chatting about the application numbers are down. The middle market client that's probably trying to purchase between 700,000, 1.2, maybe a little bit lower, maybe 600,000. They're the ones that are really hurting, where the numbers don't make sense anymore right now.
And that's a huge market because you're mentioning these New York bubbles, the Hamptons and the city. I mean, they do business like no other places. But in
Mhm.
northern counties or maybe some parts of the boroughs, I know you're New York based. Once it becomes unaffordable, what happens?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that we've lived through these cycles before. The 1980s, but when I was much younger. 25 years only gets me so much history in the market, but we've lived through these cycles before. I think we always come out of them. This is a little bit different. I think, even with weather patterns, I don't want to be doom and gloom this entire interview, but the markets are changing drastically right now. And the way that consumers do business has been changing for the past 10 years. But now the overall insurance companies are having a hard time even predicting weather patterns. There's just, you have news every day about flash floods, hurricanes happening. It's bad, but gladly right now we have the solutions. It's above my pay grade of what they're looking at to try to figure out what's next. A lot of times the state gets involved as well. I know in Florida you have a lot more state options for insurance than we do in New York. We only have the state fund or a New York property. But we'll see what the industry does to turn this around a little bit.
Let me ask you this, because I've learned, somewhat recently that credit worthiness is a big part of your underwriting. Is that's the case, or as much or more?
With most insurance companies, there are some that don't. But yeah, credit is a big factor, and insurance is based on the law of large numbers. Probably a term I haven't used since I took my licensing a long time ago. But insurance is based on data, and we have more of it now than we ever have. Predictable data, and when you have good credit, it's a very big predictor of low claims, low claims history in the future.
Hmm.
Bad credit.
To me, that's such a social commentary. You could spend all day connecting those factors. It really is something. I guess
Mhm.
not being timely on payments is one thing, and then maybe defaulting on uh, the premium. That's a thing, and then maybe recklessness. That's really an amazing, interesting, I mean, aspect to this. So, what about natural disasters? I know that New York had Katrina. I mean, not Katrina. Sandy 12 or so years ago, and Florida gets hit constantly.
Yep. Sandy
What
changed
happens?
things
Is that
for
automatic?
insurance in New York. Yeah, they implemented. When I first started, we never had anything, no verbiage called hurricane deductible or wind deductible. You had a flat deductible, all peril deductible is what they call. Now you're getting to more where insurance companies, and the beauty of my job at Comparion, now that Liberty spun us off to a Liberty powered insurance agency, is that I sell for all these different insurance carriers, from the really super high net worth carriers that you're familiar with, like Chubb, down to we're only using A-rated insurance companies, but they have different options. So most of the carriers that I had in the past were only a 5% hurricane deductible in New York State, for example. Now I have options depending, when you live, where you live. You're not going to get a very low deductible if you live on the beach in Long Beach. But there are some insurance companies that will do a lower. But those got implemented after hurricanes to kind of mitigate losses. And during Sandy, from my understanding, is that they could have implemented those. The state got involved and said that, hey, listen, this is going to really hurt the consumer if you put the hurricane deductible, and enforce that, because it's a percentage of your overall coverage on the home. So in most cases, you're going to be replacing your roof by yourself if a hurricane comes through. So insurance companies have to adapt a little bit to combat the acts of God, like the hurricane or whatever else. And there is private flood insurance as well as NFIP, National Flood, which is a federal program. So the companies are always trying to figure out, and I think that in New York, at least in the tri-state area, there's going to be a lot of insurance companies that are secondary insurance companies that are more built to insure in high prone wind areas, that are going to take a lot of the market share away from the larger companies who don't have all the bells and whistles that you'll need when a hurricane comes through. A lot of the main companies that you hear of nationally, and I'm not going to name names here, but a lot of those companies don't have a lot of ancillary coverages that the smaller regional carriers do. So coverage from your house to your to the road, all your water line, your electrical line, your sewer and waste line, you can cover those with the large insurance companies. They really don't have those options. You have a really nice basement in your house with beautiful finishings. A lot of companies limit 5, 10,000 for water backup. I have carriers that will do 250,000 more, 50,000. Some that will cover contents down there too. So the insurance companies are adapting really to what the insurance market is looking for. They're looking for those types of coverages that really don't add a lot of premium, but they're really helpful if you have a claim. And it takes an insurance provider, an insurance professional, not your online. People don't want to buy insurance online. The insurance industry thought 10 years ago was going to be a quick transition over, but nobody, very, very rarely will they buy insurance on a massive asset without speaking to somebody. So I have job security, fortunately, but it's due to the insurance professional really to have that conversation with the client, see what's important to them, know the house, know them, and then tailor the policy and not even tailor the policy, tailor them towards a carrier that would fit all those needs. So
Right.
I
I
might
have
not
to
know my
agree.
name at 65, but I know all the underwriting for all these carriers. It's mind-boggling.
I have to agree because that is such deep information that the consumer handles once. There's no way through an online portal the information can be delivered in such a nuanced way. There's so much to know. They don't come in with any knowledge, and it's a burdensome path. And what's interesting to me is there's not much difference, if any, between getting no help and getting the top quality help. It's early, haven't had lunch, but I am so hungry, and I can't stand when I come across Robert's Facebook posts where it's just insane and it makes your mouth water, and you can see the passion. I had the pleasure once of having a culinary delight where Robert prepared me and my children the girls are still talking about the lobster mac and cheese, which I have such a great memory. So tell us about your relationship with your culinary creations.
I'm very passionate about a lot of things. Insurance is one of them, but that's my career. When it comes to my hobbies, I have I have too many. My wife always says. The major one though, and the one that I've turned into a professional career is cooking. So I'll be cooking down in Boynton Beach, doing a pop-up for 30 people, 12 courses in November. Next Friday, I fly to England to cook for a really high-end cheese tour called Cheese Journeys at a beautiful manor home, 27 bedrooms in the English countryside. And I'll be cooking with 2 other French chefs there for a group of 18, 20 people. I really love just putting my best. Hospitality is just an amazing industry. And me and my wife especially, I'm in my kitchen. I'm not usually sitting in this kitchen, obviously, but I'm mostly standing in this kitchen. We entertain a lot, like we had you and your daughters over as well. I love putting food on a plate, seeing people sit down, smile, have that first bite, hopefully try something new. And I've gotten pretty good, what they say, I got pretty good at it. So, something I do on the weekends and when I have time. And I took a book out of Ryan Serhant's page. There's millions of realtors, not millions, you know what I mean? There's 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, tens of thousands of realtors. There's tens of thousands of, insurance agents across. They all perform the same function. But in the end of the day, people do business with people they like. So a common thing that everybody can talk about is food. And that's why I've traveled. I've been to over 60 countries, many more than a few times. And food brings people together. Spices, flavors, all that stuff brings people together for good conversations. I've had some of my best mortgage bankers that I work with start a relationship over food. I used to do this tasting menu, actually. In fact, we used to get a real estate professional, somebody else's sponsor, maybe an attorney to sponsor as well. And we would have a dinner with the mortgage banker's best real estate professionals, their best real estate agents.
and I put my best food forward, do 5, 6 courses. I'd MC the event. So, I'm having the mortgage bankers have their best clients come that send them business. I'm meeting new realtors. I'm making new relationships over food. There's no better way to do it.
No better way.
That really spurred me into doing that for free and making new relationships to say a lot of people, hey, what do you charge? And getting my certifications, things like that I need to cook at people's homes. It's backbreaking work, and people only see 10% of it. They see the end. They don't see me shopping at 3 different places for it. So I'm doing a little bit less of that now, except for the gigs where I travel for it, because that's really fun. And I bought a spice company about 2 years ago. Almost, I'm going into my second year now of a spice company called Collected Foods. It's based on our travels. I have one partner that's involved that actually came up with the blends, another chef. I own a majority of the company. I did a whole rehaul of the company, the brand look, and we're online in multiple places. We're in stores, and it's just me to be able to, monetize the brand that I built for myself as far as an insurance agent that can cook, and really just, take that passion I have of travel, bringing spices blends that maybe 1,000, like North Africa, za'atar, harissa, Korean chilies. There's so many different blends that have been. Za'atar is an ancient mix of Ras Al Hanout is another one. It's a mixture of spices. It's referred to front of shop. It's a mixture of all these blends of spices that you would see in a spice bazaar or food market in Morocco, for example. So, insurance after 25 years gets boring. It's not boring this year. It's definitely not boring this year. It's been challenged, and I love the challenge. But, you have to have, if you have that artistic side. Both my parents my dad was a professional singer. My mom was a professional artist. I'm kind of that right brain. I think it's the right brain anyway. But it's just a way to get my artistic flow out, in between crunching numbers and trying to figure out underwriting for, people buying houses on the water.
Yeah, well, I mean, I am so proud of you because you've taken this passion and anyone can see your enthusiasm. And I think that the most intimate act is eating together. I mean, you're coming together and you're delighting others. I think it's a great way to create a relationship, let someone know that you're thinking. And I mean, what's better than a tasty meal in a beautiful setting such as your own? I think it's compelling. It's a fantastic common experience and you rave about it, and it's also in the comfort and beauty of your own home. So you're welcoming people into an atmosphere where they see you're really, really giving it your best effort. Your family's beautiful. I think it's amazing how you've incorporated travel and these really, really far-flung places. It's kind of like the Bourdain thing, right? Or now the Tucci to a much lesser way. I don't think he's great with it, but the Bourdain thing certainly was. That the public has such a voracious, appetite for that information. And I mean, to me, it's great. Networking is giving others something they don't have, and exposure. I mean, let's say you never have a bite. If I'm looking at your stuff digitally with some French names, I've learned, and I'm better for it. So it's really an exciting thing. I really respect your passion. I'm glad that it's so fulfilling for you. I know that
a lot to offer. The world has a lot to offer. There's flavors. There's amazing flavors all around the world, from West African food, Nigerian food, you can name a country, and there's a few countries with pretty drab food out there. They'll eventually get there, but there's just flavors from around the world that the spice trade has really lent a lot of power to. There's a lot of countries that have, like Vietnam, for example, has a French influence. Guyana has some 6 or 7 different cultures came to bring their food to them. Even the bread that you find in Vietnam is using rice flour instead of, the baguettes. They're using rice flour because that's what they have more of. But I mean, you can't argue and your viewers can't argue either, that the best conversations they've ever had probably were over a meal. And the meal could have been anywhere. It could have been in a tent in the Sahara in Morocco. It could have been in someone's house. It could have been in a restaurant. It's just the conversation that we have. The world stops around us. Hopefully we put our phones away, unless it's to share contact information. But you have just great conversations over food. And, you know, you can network. PlugIntro is great because you can network in that group. But when you go to like networking events, you know, you're just kind of like having minimal conversations, quick conversations. Hopefully you make some good networking, good connections at these networking events. But then, you know, it's always followed up with, let's do lunch. Let's have a cup of coffee. You're breaking that barrier there and seeing how we could do business together.
Absolutely. It's a common commitment. People are saying, let's do this together. I mean, you and I had about a 3-hour lunch one day in Tarrytown. I remember that was
I remember that.
great.
Yep.
Yeah. And I had one with an old friend recently, and, you know, the time goes by effortless. Of course, when you pair that with the right wine or spirits, you know, the holidays are coming up, and even though the barbecue is not as you know, varied, but you know, there's so many family outings,
You're in Florida.
holidays.
Come on, the barbecue never stops in Florida.
Barbecue never stops, but you know, there's not variety. Let's say, you know, the holiday season is coming up, and what people forget about is we have a holiday every Sunday or every Saturday. People are watching the games. There's college and pro. People gather every week. You know, that's not just your big holidays. You're going from essentially kickoff to the Super Bowl. That's 17, 20 weeks. That's almost half the year. People are congregating together, you know, for some kind of getting away from reality and caring about a game, even if you don't care about the outcome. So there's a lot of
Mondays.
Sure.
You get back in the office and everybody's complaining about their auto insurance rates. They say, call my guy Rob.
Right. I know. So I know you're a pro. What is that? If you can't go into detail, let me know that program you're mentioning. And there's so many kids at September that went back to college. And I know there's programs where a person can start, if I'm correct, they're locked in that rate for life. And you know, what should a young adult do?
Yeah, you have different types of methods. You know, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not licensed anymore to do that. So there are different long-term, or what we call in the market, permanent life insurance products that have that cash value buildup. And in a lot of cases, if you're doing a 529 plan, that's great. Usually that's only, that's only usually for education. What if your kid's got a full scholarship? What if they don't go to college? They go to do something else. They work in the family business, don't need education for that. That money is going to be taxed later on and penalized because it was originally purposed for education. So there are some really cool products that we have. We rolled out a new one just on Monday in New York that we're excited about. That the cash value accumulations are very competitive. The products are very competitive, and there's ways to overfund it for college education or for whatever. You want to gift your 2-year-old in 20 years, you want to gift them a life insurance policy that they have for life at that same rate, great. They want to cash it in, buy their first house, you know, put a deposit down, they could do that too. It's just more flexibility and some of the benefits of, you know, not having taxable occurrences on withdrawals from life insurance or loans from life insurance that you would on a regular, like putting money into a municipal, you know, into not municipal, but into like a mutual fund. That's the word I was looking for.
Fund.
So,
I mean, do you find, because I mean, rare is the parent of the preschooler aware of this and doing this, and it's not about money. I think it's about it's more about status quo, and people are not making those very, very inexpensive moves. I mean,
you see that in almost everything. You know, fail to plan to fail. You know, with, you know, people trying to like retire. Okay, what have you been doing to your 401k this entire time? Have you been taking advantage of the company match? We have a statistic that in America there's 100 million people that have not bought any life insurance, that don't have any life insurance. That's a scary, I mean, you see it all the time on YouTube. There's GoFundMe pages because somebody failed to plan. So it's not just in the college planning process, it's life insurance, that product it's not a tangible product. Life insurance, nobody's telling you need to buy it. In the back of your mind, if you have kids, you need to buy it, but there's no DMV saying you want to put plates on a car, you need insurance, You're buying a home, you need home insurance. There's nobody telling you, and you're never going to be the benefactor of your own life insurance policy unless it's a cash value policy. Your beneficiaries will be your children, your wife, your spouse, your husband. They're going to be the beneficiaries of that. Your surviving spouse is going to be the beneficiary of that. So I implore everybody, and that's why we have an entire month. We have a month to talk about, it's Life Insurance Awareness Month. It's a month to bring awareness that you don't need to have your spouse put a GoFundMe page up. There are life insurance products to start building cash value for your children for whatever purpose they want to use or you want to use. So it's just an awareness month of talking and saying, have that conversation with your auto and home insurance provider. Most of the time they sell life insurance too, or they can direct you to somebody that can. But I get much more fulfillment out of selling a life insurance policy because over a 25-year career, you could be darn sure I've delivered checks to survivors. Very, very sobering appointment.
Sure. I've seen that in the community of those that have lost a spouse, where there's a huge difference in those that have and have not.
Yeah. So,
Right.
I mean, it's just a matter of professionals getting out there to be able to educate customers and have those conversations. And insurance professionals have to stop with the selling on price, selling on that. I've always been a consultative salesperson. I think that's why I've been successful, is because I dig. I find out what the needs of the customer are, and I try to make sure that they're aware. And if you tell me that you have no life insurance, I am not going to stop bothering you about it until you tell me, stop calling me. I'm very persistent when it comes to life insurance because we've all seen the damage it can do when somebody doesn't have it. But life insurance planning, it is more important to insure. That's why in the state of New York, as well, I'm sure in other states, there's a law that your children can't have life insurance before you do. And there's a percentage depending on age, of what the children can have. So whenever I have that conversation about college education funding and things like that through life insurance, you have to have the conversation with the parents about what they have first, and then we can talk about the kids. But it's a conversation. My job is education, and then hopefully the clients and my COIs act on it.
Yeah, that's I think that's fantastic, and I admire you for your diligence and your application and knowledge. I admire you as being a host of a platform which is really unique, where you are certainly heard and you're giving other professionals or industry members or colleagues and even local business owners or just friends a chance to learn. In addition, you're doing something other insurance pros are not. You're giving them a voice within a digital platform where they can be heard, let others know. Someone could be a jeweler, someone could be a DJ, someone could be a pediatrician, and they have the chance to be seen at no cost. And it's powerful.
And it's exciting to see how big PlugIntro has gotten and how successful you've been with it. It obviously works. There's new relationships made every day in PlugIntro. So it's definitely, it's really cool. Great thinking outside the box and taking advantage of something so powerful as social media.
Well, I mean, the distinction between social media and local business media is simply, look at you. You have a professional message, and you are directly delivering that message to the people that can hire or refer you. That's what social media should have been, but instead you're throwing out information, which might be valuable, but your competition sees it. You're hoping to be found because you didn't send it to anyone directly. If I mail you a postcard, it's going to your house. If I make a post on social media, it's going nowhere, and your competition sees. I mean, look at everything you've mentioned. If I was your competition, I would write everything down, I'd do some research, and I'd copy you. Well, why wouldn't you want to be individual and demonstrate your professionalism and your expertise, it makes sense. All the networking groups that you see either offer exclusivity or don't offer. We've been to conferences. We see people like lenders, I'll throw it out there, fighting elbow to elbow, jockeying for position, talk to a realtor. I mean, that's unbecoming. That's poor taste. So
People
we live
can
in a
copy,
different
but
world.
there's few people that are consistent at the message and doing what we do, and that's what makes that successful entrepreneur. They're doing what works consistently, and maybe if they don't see results, they're doing it for the long term. It's a great mortgage banker that I work with that constantly putting out videos, and he's always reminding it's about consistency. The long term results are there if you do the right thing all the time for a long time.
And that gives authority, and that builds trust, and that makes someone comfortable to trust that professional or refer that professional. Referrals or introductions are selfish. I don't know if you know that. I've introduced many people to you. I want to look good. I want to be seen as a resource. It is selfish. If I know that, hey, you got to check out Mario's, it's a crazy good restaurant. You got to check out this movie, it's great. And if it is great, if I turn you on to something that, wow, he really knows what he's talking about, he's discerning.
I like that.
I like
that.
And yeah, I think you have to be. And I think people are so, what's the word? They're kind of going with the flow, or maybe complacent. You want to be those in the know. You want to be, a fancy word, a conoscente, those in the know. And I say, listen, call Robert. I don't know about this. Get it away from me, but I can send you to the place. You got to try this.
You want to be the go-to guy. So
you want to be
when
the
end
resource.
comes, when it's a product that you sell directly, they're never going to think of anybody else but you. That's
absolutely.
Yeah.
And referrals are so easy. Someone told me we live in the golden age of communication. You can do more in an hour between texting and messaging and posting and videos. You could reach more people in the next 10 minutes than it wasn't that long when I was out of school, out of law school, when you were using phones, and that's it.
Yeah, you do a TikTok live and all of a sudden you have 6,000 followers. Do you know how difficult it is to fill a stadium up with 1,500 people? And how expensive it is? Possible.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Unless you're Tony Robbins.
I remember when years ago we would have lenders or some other professional, we would rent a movie theater for 9 a.m. when the theaters are empty and they're vacuuming. And we say, listen, it's a great venue, but what about a snowstorm? What about a kid sick? What about how many times can you expect people to really come on out? So you and I had that great dinner discussion, which was really valuable, and people enjoyed connecting with each other monthly. We learned a lot, and look at the relationships that we built.
Yeah, for sure. Ours goes back over a decade.
Yeah, and you're my guy, and I had a flood, Hurricane Ida. I don't think we waited 14 minutes before everything was settled, and I really appreciate that. It helped me and my family out. Well, folks, Robert is a great resource. I mean, anything that you want, whether it's knowledge, whether it's some enrichment, I really suggest that people work with Robert. He's a consummate professional. He knows what he's doing. He's got great contacts locally and overall. Robert's a really, really dedicated host. He wants to be heard, but he really, really offers others a chance to be heard.